Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Okay. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming, and we have a very special guest today, Eileen Joy. Welcome to Imperfect Momming.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for having me today. I'm so excited. We're going to have the best conversation.
I agree, because we already had an offline conversation about how you spell your name correctly. Because my
only way
name is Eileen, so you know there's a correct way of spelling it, obviously. And
that's right.
I think that Eileen is one of the most has the most variations of spellings, and I think Alicia has the second most.
It really does.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I am a single mom. I'm divorced, and my son is 11. He's going on 47. He is my best friend. I am the money coach for high achieving moms. I help moms make money easy. And I help you to create wealth for your bank accounts, be debt free while still having fun, and learn how to stop living paycheck to paycheck, and then teach your kids how to have a healthy money mindset and then set themselves up for life. And my son, he knows more about money than most adults, and he'll be a multimillionaire by the time he's my age.
I heard just recently, like, one of the things that is taboo to talk about is money. Something that literally affects everyone. We are not allowed to talk about it, but we're allowed to watch TV shows about committing murder or solving murders, or like that was the example that they gave. And I was like, that is so interesting. Like it's not talked about in school. It's not taught in school. And then, you know, the argument is like, well, the parents should teach it. And it's like, well, but we learned from our parents who may or may not have talked about money and had their own money stories.
Exactly. Exactly. Money is one of those taboo subjects like sex, politics, religion, murder, right? All these different things, right? And it's like money in particular, there's so many social stigmas around it. And depending upon what generation you grew up in is really depending how you approach it. And going back to your money story, like that is where you learn how to deal with money. And you're actually not you're not sat down and taught. Like we don't learn about money in school. I mean, that's why I created Money School for Moms, because we don't learn about money in school, and neither are our kids, right? So we are expected as parents to take the responsibility and teach them, but then we don't really know what we're doing, right? And we're thrown to the wolves when we grow up and get our jobs, and we're just expected to know what to do with it. And meanwhile, there's the crisis going on all around the world with everyone in trillions of dollars of debt. And then everyone's freaking out that they're not going to be able to retire because there's not enough money saved. So I hear everyone talk, like on Facebook and all over, and just conversations I hear, I'm going to have to work till the day I die. You know, I mean, like, who wants that unless you absolutely love your job, which 99% of the people out there really don't.
Right.
And what I hear the most, you know, from people that they feel stuck, right? Stuck in their job. They're like, oh, there has to be a better way. I just feel awful. I'm miserable and I don't make enough, right? And our jobs, JOB for just over broke, right? Our jobs keep us just over broke, and we get our money, it's gone. There's more month left at the end of the money. And then we're left going, now what? Right. And so when you think back to when you were little, right, your money story starts from the ages of 0 to 7. So when you're 0 to 7, is when you're learning, right? We're conditioned. That's where we take on our conditioning, and we get our patterns, and we learn from our parents and our environment and from just everything around us. And we learn how to walk, we learn how to talk, we learn how to be, we learn how to live within our society. Wherever you live in the world, right? You're shaped at that time when you're little to say, this is acceptable and this is not acceptable, right? And everything's mostly no, no, don't do that. That's not okay, right? And this is when we're learning, right? And so this is what happens with money too. Like in your house, when you were growing up, did your parents fight about money? Were they very happy with their money? Did they never even talk about it? What was the deal in your house when you were growing up? And that's how you initially learn about money, and it just kind of lives in your subconscious. And then that's how you approach money for the rest of your life until you have an aha moment and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I think I need to make a change. Right?
Yeah.
And that's about with everything in our lives, right? We have that aha moment and then we make the change. But if, like, for example, in my home, my parents fought so much about money. They made great money. They both had great jobs, great money. But my mom, she was a spender, still is. My dad, also a spender, and he had a gambling addiction. So the money would come in and it would immediately disappear. So when my sister and I would want something, the answer was always, no, money doesn't grow on trees. We don't have the money for that. No, 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 some form of no, right? And then my parents would constantly be fighting because my mom would fight with my dad about the gambling, right? And then they would just be like, we need money for this, well, we don't have it. And the fights were so bad that furniture was thrown, holes were punched in walls. It was terrible. My sister and I would just like hide in our rooms. And so we grew up with that in mind of money is bad. Money causes fights. When you get money, you need to spend it. You need to max out your credit cards and just spend it like crazy. And it's like, as soon as it comes in, it's not okay to keep it. And so my sister and I both became spenders. And then ultimately, I filed for bankruptcy, right? I had a bankruptcy years ago. And this was all happening around the time of my divorce. I had to sell my house to pay for my divorce. And at the same time, I had to get a new job because I was working with my sister-in-law at the time. And got pretty toxic in the work environment. So I had a great job and I had to find another great job. So thankfully I did. And then my son and I got into a really bad car accident and my car was totaled. We both ended up in the hospital. I'm still dealing with a neck injury today from that car accident. This was all happening during my divorce and at the tail end of a bankruptcy. And so by the time my divorce was final, I'll never forget it. I received a check in the mail from my attorney's office because they seized everything that I had to make sure they got paid. And so at the end of the day, they sent me a check for all the money that I had left in the world. Now I'm divorced, single mom with a 5-year-old. Open the envelope, check for $347. So now I have to get a new house, new job, new car. I've got a check for $347. I'm a single mom going, now what? Right? And thankfully, I bounced back pretty quickly and fully funded emergency fund, found the great job, got the new car, did all the things, right? Found the house, did all of the things. And then I was able to pay that car off. I had a 6-year car loan on that new car. I paid it off in 3 years, completely repaired my credit in the 800s now, completely debt free. I was able to fire my financial advisor and I'm now on track to retire early. And so what I really want you to know is that, no, we're not learning about money in school, but it is possible to learn, right? And money isn't hard. Everyone thinks money is so hard. You go on Google University and you Google something about money and it's just so overwhelming and confusing, right? And it's never specific to your specific situation because personal finance is personal, right? There is no one way to do it, right? There's foundational things that everyone needs to know, but for your personal situation, Like that's what money's about. Money's just a tool to help you create your dream life. That's all it is, right? And we're never really taught that. We're just taught that we just need to spend it, right? And we just shop, shop, shop till you drop. And then you're left to worry. And, you know, a lot of people think that money is just something to manage, right? And then spending is something to curb. But it's not the whole picture. And it's really like the spending of our money is very deeply important and personal.
I feel like I'm watching a master class right now. So I had a similar money story where I learned at a young age, it manifested a lot in life as I better spend it before someone takes it from me. Because, you know, my dad was good with money. That was not his dad's opinion, but my dad was good with money. Um, and when, you know, I was, you know, 10 or 12 years old. I think I had $1,000 saved. Um, I mean, that's a lot from the 80s. You know, that was still, that was early 90s by the time I was 10. It was a lot of money. It wasn't on purpose. It was just like I didn't spend money. And people would give me money. It went in my bank and I just didn't spend it. And one day the garage door got left open and and the bikes were stolen from the garage. And I was blamed for leaving it open. I don't know that happened. I was not the only child in the house. But I got blamed for leaving the garage door open. And so when we went to Costco to go get the new bike, my dad said, I'm taking half of the cost of this bike from your account. And it was like, well, I didn't agree to that. Like that wasn't my idea. Like, yeah, I want a new bike. I don't even know if that was a discussion. I don't remember, honestly, if do you want a new bike was a discussion. It was like, okay, we're gonna go get you a new bike. And then at the checkout, now you get to pay for half of it. And it was like, well, wait a second. So then when I was 18, I was given college money from my grandma, and I was like, I want to buy a car. And my mom said, well, you have, you know, $2,000. And so we're going to take your $2,000 and we're going to buy this car because I know this person and they're selling that car for $2,000 and it's a really cool car. And I was like, well, I didn't ask for that. I didn't agree to that. I didn't, you know, like, and I have so many stories that fit that story, right? Um, and like, thank God I got into this personal development work because I recognized that pattern. You know, same thing senior year. I was like, hey, can I go to prom? Can I buy this dress? Can I do that? Like asking permission. Meanwhile, my dad was tallying everything that I was spending. And he had budgeted $200 a month for um for child support because when I was living with my mom, that's what he was giving her. So that's what I was allowed to spend per month. And when I went over, there was a little, there was a there was a deficit. So when I turned 18, I got to pay all that stuff back
Oh, wow.
with zero conversation about it. It was like, and I had this realization, if my dad had had conversations with me about what was going on, money or otherwise,
Mhm.
99% of my limiting beliefs would not have existed, or the ones that I had. I'm sure I would have gotten different ones. But ones that I took on, you know, would not have been. But it's that generation, we don't talk about stuff, we don't talk about money,
Mhm.
all of those things. And like I talk to my son about everything again except for money.
Hmm.
My fiance is way more open about it because he has a job that's consistent, and I have an entrepreneurial business that's not always consistent. And my son and I were buying a bounce house for his birthday next month. And he's like, well, that was a lot of money, Mom? And I was like, it is, but it's for your birthday. And so I'm committing to this, and that's your present. And he's like, so I don't get any other presents? And I was like, well, we're getting the bounce house, and you're inviting friends, so you're going to get other presents, like, but this is what I'm committing to. Um, and he's like, well, but I don't get any other presents. He's like, well, Mom, how much do you make? Because he's trying to justify, how much do you make per day? Because that's how my
Hmm.
fiance talks about it. He's like, I make this much per day. And it's like there's this disconnect of like, this is what we make per day, and these are the expenses per day. It's not just, this is what I make and I get to keep it all.
Right. And that's one of the things that's so important about kids and money. And when you also think about when you were little, when I was little, we had paper and coins, right? And now it's all digital,
Mm,
right? We don't really use paper and coins anymore. Only 10% of the entire world uses paper and coins right now.
wow.
And so everything's on your phone, add to cart, or on watch, even like you could talk to your watch, like Kit, Kit, come around back, so you can order stuff on your
There
watch,
and
right?
payment plans are
Right.
so easy. Like, you
Yes,
can
it's
do
too
PayPal
easy.
payment plan, and
Yes.
it's only 4 payments of,
Right.
$300.
But if you do that for everything, you like all of a
Right.
sudden screwed yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to do, right? And so your kids watch you and what you're doing, and that's how they're learning. So if they're constantly seeing Amazon boxes show up on the doorstep, and then you're like, oh yeah, what did I order? I forgot, and stuff like that. Like that's how they're learning, right? And so opening up the conversation at home is where it starts, right? This is how we make money not taboo anymore. Like
Mhm.
it's our responsibility as parents because they're not teaching it in school. So we have to take on that responsibility, or we can just throw our kids to the wolves and let them have the same problems that we're having, right? Right now, most kids, depending upon how old they are, have a fine relationship with money. They're not paying bills, right? They're not in the day to day. They don't get it, not yet,
Right.
right? So if we can start teaching them now when they're young and open up that conversation for them. Like in my house, when we talk about money, it's a normal conversation, like the weather, like, oh, it's raining today. Oh, let's look at your money. It's not a big deal. And so learning about money is like also learning about life lessons because we create our dream lives through our money, right? So if money is so intertwined in our lives, like we cannot survive, unfortunately, without money, right? In the world that we have today, we cannot survive without money. And so we have to find a way to create money for ourselves in a way that's meaningful. Now, in years past, generations before us, they were taught, like my parents, my grandparents, they were taught just get a job, stay there forever, get your gold watch and your pension. Things aren't like that anymore, right?
Mhm.
And unless you work for the government or another agency that has a pension, then fine, right? A lot of people do have that luxury of getting the pension. My mom and my dad, before he passed away, they had their pensions and they didn't have to worry really so much about saving every single penny that they possibly could for retirement for when they stopped working, right? So they never taught us how to do that because they didn't have to worry about it, right? So it was not a top of mind thing for them. So now our generations are now coming into this new life of, oh shit, now what? We really weren't. We know that there's this thing called a 401k if you have a job, or there's, retirement accounts, but no one ever taught you how to use them, right? And so this is why I teach the 4 buckets. And I teach the 4 buckets to all my moms the same way that I taught my son, and the same way that you can teach your kids, right? And that's all money is. It's learning how to use these 4 buckets: spending, investing, giving, and saving, right? So we save, we invest, we give, and we spend. Okay. And so what most people do is spend. And then there's these 3 other buckets that are empty. Or the saving bucket has some money in it sometimes, and then it's empty, right? And so it's really just opening up the conversation at home that we're all going to learn how to use these buckets, right? And it's okay. It's great to learn with your kids, and it's even more fun to do it as a family, right? Especially learning how to save. Well, what are we going to save for? Right? It's not just a pile of money, right? Like you hear so much about the emergency fund, right? It's just this emergency fund that's just a pile of money just in case, right? And that's not really what an emergency fund is, right? The way that I teach it is I teach you how to have many little emergency funds for very specific things, right? Because personal finance is personal, right? And when we approach our lives, what the money that you make in your family is very different than the money that we make in my family, right? Your neighbors, right? Everyone makes something different. Your jobs are different. Your lifestyle is different. Your expenses are different. Your dreams are different, right? So when you approach your money, you want to approach it with a purpose, right? Instead of just saying, well, I got to make money to pay the bills. Like I hear my mom, like still to this day, she always complained about the bills. The bills, got to pay the bills. Still, even to this day, sometimes I call her, what are you doing paying the bills? And it's like, that's not what life's about, right? At least it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right. But for some people, it's become that. It's become just this constant worry of, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pay the bills. There's just not enough. Right.
Yeah.
Now, and all the prices are going up and inflation, and everyone's just constantly worried. So if we just take a step back and we learn how to use the buckets and really step into yourself and say, what's most important in my life? Right? I'm not going to run into Target for deodorant, run around, grab a whole cart full of stuff and forget the deodorant and spend $300 and go home and go, I got to go back to the store. Right. And it's like, because we don't approach money with a purpose, right? Of like, this money comes in and I'm going to tell it what to do. Right. And that's really what budgeting is all about. The budget, that scary word, right? What happens to you when you think of the word budget? Like what happens in your body, and like what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I mean, I've done a lot of work on budgets, but at one point it was like, I don't, it's overwhelming, it's confusing, and especially when with the non-consistency of my business. That was like, so I had worked with a money person and she's like, well, take the average of what you make. And I was like, well, the average of what I made at that point was $600. And that didn't even come close to touching the bills,
Right.
So it was like, my dad was masterful. Quicken was his best friend. We always used to say Quicken never lies. So if Quicken says that you owe money, then it never lies. So which I'm like, but there's a human operating Quicken, so there's room for error.
There's
But
always room for
there
error.
is always room for error. And so he had it, down to the penny. He knew where every single penny was and what it was doing. And when you have a 9 to 5 or a salaried position, that's something that's really possible. And it was like, I'm like, where are the people that are teaching, I'm not really good at business and that's my job. Budgeting. That's what I
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah. Because what you think about most when you think of budgeting is, first of all, before you even get to the numbers, It's this feeling that comes into your body of restriction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like that word diet,
Mm.
right? Same,
Yeah.
right? Money and dieting, same feeling, deprivation, right? And what most people, when I ask them, what does the word budget mean to you? It has some form of deprivation or starvation, right? With your money, because everyone just thinks I have to pay the bills and all of my money has to go to that,
Mm.
right? And once you start giving your money a purpose, yeah, you got to pay the bills, but there's so much room in there for so many other things. But when you're just going to Target and randomly spending it, you don't realize that because you're just kind of throwing it. Like I gave this example once to somebody and they loved it. And it was like, when you think about when you get paid, right? It's all digital, right? It goes in your bank account. And so then you go to the bank, you drive to the bank and you go to the ATM and you take all of that money out in cash and you get to feel it and smell it. And it's like, ooh, I got money, right? And you get in your car and you start driving home and you open the window and you take that money and you throw it out the window and then you get to see it in the rearview mirror floating away driving down the road, causing accidents behind you because everyone's slamming on their brakes to go try to catch the money, right? So when you think about that, it's like, well, you get your money but it doesn't have a purpose. It just disappears, right?
Yeah.
So if you take a step back and really think about what really matters to you and your family, yeah, we got to pay the bills, but what else? Right? Another thing I learned from watching my father, he was an entrepreneur. He he came from the generation of you have to work for a company until you get the gold watch. He was born in 1940,
Mm.
and he went in the army after high school, and then went right into the workforce. And then while he was there, he was one of those people of there has to be a better way, right? And so he started a business in our house in the basement when I was little. And he was working this business while he was working his job. And he created a multi-million-dollar business from the basement of our house. And then once the gold watch came, he retired and got his pension. And then he went full-time in his business after that. And he opened up this huge office. He had all these employees. And that's all he did was work.
Mm.
And he loved hockey. He went to hockey games in the city in New York. He went go Rangers, and he and that's it. He worked and went to hockey games, right? So when he finally stopped working, when he sold his business and he stopped working, he had nothing, and he became depressed.
Mm.
And he literally, I'm not joking, he would sit at the kitchen table in his underwear and just like stare out the window and or watch TV and just mope around. And he would call me crying all the time. Like, I'm so bored. I'm like, go find something to do, make some new friends, go to the Y, go to the senior center, something, And then I said, maybe volunteer, go do something that lights you up. And so he was in the army, right? So he went to the VA and he asked if he could volunteer at the VA hospital. And at that time, he was so depressed that they turned him down.
Oh.
And then he became more depressed. And so one of the things that I really love to reiterate with my clients and just the moms that I talk to is to really hone in on what matters to you now, right? What's important to you now? What do you love doing? What lights you up now? Create your dream life now so that when you retire, you could do more of that. Right. And
Mhm.
so, like, one of the things that I love to do is dance. I look like a fool. I don't care, but I love to dance. And I can't go to the club anymore. So I I signed up for a hip hop dance class. And it's an adult hip hop dance class. We go once a week and it is so much fun. And I go and I dance, I get my groove on and I learn new steps and like all these things I never thought I would ever do. These steps are amazing. They're hard. And it's really fun. And other things, like I find other things that I really enjoy that I just added into my life now so that later I can do more of those things or I
Mm.
can do something else, but at least I'm not just working. right? And there's
Yeah.
so many people now that are just working because we're trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
And then your kids grow up, they go to school, and then you're like, now what? Or then you retire and it's even worse, right? So we take a step back, and this, like, one of my clients, Megan, it was amazing. She, first of all, was so afraid to talk about money with her husband
Mm.
because she would make the money, he would spend it. And she was trying to get ahead, and then he would just take it and spend it. And all of these things. And she was terrified to talk because they would fight. And so we took a step back and we decided, what's really important to both of you, and let's learn how to talk to each other. Right? Because communicating about money is like the number one most important thing with our partner as well as our kids.
And I remember when I got divorced, that I saw a statistic that said that that's the number one reason for divorce is money. And it was true. I mean, that wasn't the reason, but it was like
Mhm.
it was a factor. And uh my thought at the time, I was really angry about it. I was like, why do we have marriage counseling and not financial counseling for when we go into for when we go into marriage? Like,
Yeah.
why is it the standard to talk about the relationship? Because did we talk about money in the marriage counseling? If we did, I don't remember. But it was like, and it was anyway, like, why is that not a thing?
Because we don't learn about it in school. So it's not something we talk about, it's taboo.
Right.
Even though we need money to survive.
Right.
And we don't talk about it, we ignore it, we pretend it doesn't exist until it becomes a problem. And then it becomes everything. And then, yes, money is considered one of the biggest reasons about divorce, but it's not the money, it's the communication about the money.
Mhm.
Everything comes back to communication. It doesn't matter what the reason is, it's communicating about the thing,
Right.
right? That's all it is. And it's because we're so terrified. Like, it literally feels like we're going to die if we
Mm.
want to talk about something that is so uncomfortable, right? And until we start working on those things, you will never talk about it.
And some of the ways that you described people describing money, like I was just imagining, I remember someone a money person talking about what if money was a person? What does that like, imagine money as a person? What does that person look like? It might have been in the You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. It might have been in
Hmm.
that book.
Hmm.
Um, and which at the time when that I read that the book triggered me
Yeah.
at like that's how uncomfortable money was just reading the book, and God forbid reading it in public.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like that poor person that you described as, other people, how they think of money, like how sad for money that's how people think about it and talk about it. And it just like it shifted that for me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's how I would say, I would say 100% of the people out there. It doesn't matter how much money you have, you can still have all of these feelings about money. I work with women who make multiple six figures and they're still terrified of their money, right? It doesn't matter how
Yeah.
much you have. It matters how you feel about it and how you approach it. And
Yeah.
if you're scared of it all the time, you're going to get rid of it
Hmm.
because you're scared of it
Right.
and you don't know what to do with it. So you just don't even want to deal with it. So you're just like, okay, bye. I'm just going to go
And
spend
it
it.
and it can control you in different ways too, where
Yes.
like the security of money. I've
Yes.
had a client that was like, I can quit my job when I have enough money to float me for 6 months, while I'm because she wanted to become a real estate agent. And that's not always, you don't make money as soon as you walk through the door. And so, we asked how much do you currently have? And she's like, about 3 million. It's like, I think you'll be okay for 6 months.
It's all her
Yeah,
feelings and
for
her
sure.
money story,
Yeah,
right? It's how you internalize it in your subconscious
yeah.
that you don't realize that that's how it is until it becomes conscious,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything, and that's with everything, right?
Right.
Everything's stuck in our subconscious and we don't notice it until it becomes conscious.
Right.
So now that you can't unhear this, right? When you approach your money, think about immediately the feelings that you're getting, like, and the response that your body gives you. Does your heart race really bad? Do you feel like you're going to throw up? Are you sweating in places that you don't want to mention? Like all the things, right? What are you thinking? What are the limiting beliefs that you have around money? What are those negative things that you say? Like, I can't have that. Why? Right? And
Right.
all these things, it starts from childhood, but it continues on. And, especially with the Joneses, right? We all love these Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses. I'm sure we've all heard this term, right?
Uh-huh. I want to
So,
know who the Joneses were.
so they
Started this
actually,
all.
I actually know.
Do you?
I
That's
do.
hysterical.
It was actually a comic strip that started in 1913 in the
Wow.
newspaper. Yeah. And it was called The Joneses, and it was about these neighbors. And so there was this woman who was constantly peering through the window at Mrs. Jones. Right, Mrs. Jones has this, Mrs. Jones has that. I want that too. And constantly telling her husband that he doesn't make enough money. You can actually Google the comic strip. You can see the actual, I read a lot of them just because I was curious. But
Yeah.
yeah, so like her husband was
Funny.
always like, okay, fine, I'll go ask for a raise, and all these
Yeah.
things so she can go spend money,
Right.
right? And
It's
that's
in
how
the
it started.
water. It's in
Right.
these beliefs, they're in the water. Like
Yep.
it's so important to look at it. And I was so clueless for a lot of my money beliefs and where they came from. And I had to, my dad passed away. Um, and I went to his sister and I said, I want to know what my grandpa, your dad, believed about money, because for sure it's in the water, like it got passed down. And she's like, well, he liked to, he didn't like to spend the money, but when he did, he wanted the quality thing. And I was like, that resonates. I remember and this was a seed that got planted when I was little. My stepmom bought 2 pairs of shoes for Christmas because she didn't know which ones that I would like. And so she bought 2 pair and she said, you get to pick one, whichever one you like the best. And I picked one of them that I liked better than the other. And she said, you're just like your dad. You have expensive taste. And I was like, and it didn't take on a negative connotation at that time. And now I'm like, I wonder
Yep.
if there was a little, irritation in that statement. And actually I felt it energetically. Like I can say, like, I wasn't conscious of it, but like looking
Right.
back, I felt that there was irritation that I have the expensive taste, but I wore it like a badge of honor. Like I have expensive taste.
Yeah. And those are money stories.
Mhm.
All of these things are money
Yeah.
stories, and they just live in our body, and we internalize these things. And then those are the things that end up triggering us later.
Yeah.
And then we're not really sure where the trigger is coming from at first,
Mhm.
because these things are just swirling around inside of us. But yeah, like we learn about money from our parents. They've learned about money from their parents. They learned about money from their parents. And it goes back thousands of years. All these generational patterns of money that are all mishmashed in us now, right? And then you have a partner who has the same issue, different money story,
Right.
different generational patterns. And then you come together and you just collide,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And that's why people don't want to talk about it, because it's so uncomfortable. It's so icky.
Yeah.
It's so just, we don't do that. It's not polite to talk about money, right?
Yep. Is there a piece of advice that you want to share with moms? This whole thing has been an amazing everything. Like when you froze, I was like, I feel like I'm in a master class. So
I told you before we started recording, I could talk for hours.
all good. There is one meme that I wanted to read, if I can find it super
Yeah,
quick. But
I would love to.
a friend of mine posted this, and stupid Facebook shows you things that got posted 4 days ago, and
Yeah, out of nowhere.
instead, at least I remember who posted it though. Like that's the thing that's really hard. The degree to which a person can grow is directly proportional to the amount of truth they can accept about themselves without running away. And that thought got triggered in this conversation because of the discomfort that we feel about things and the way that we're programmed, or the way that we deal with, these discomfort is, well, we're just not gonna, we're gonna pretend it's over there. I don't have to think about it anymore. And if you're not watching the video, like, I'm
Putting on the blinders.
putting on the blinders. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
not gonna, if I have the blinders on, I don't have to look at what's to the left or the right. I can just look at what's in front of me and be controlled by the things that I'm not seeing.
Right. And that's why we need to take our power back,
Yeah.
because especially with money, there's so many other things too, but especially with money and the fact that we need money to survive, it is so easy to let the power go. But we need to take the power back,
Yeah.
so we can learn how to control our money, so that we can create the dream life that we've always wanted, that we're so afraid of getting, right? And really, that's where it all begins. So, like when I work with my clients, that's where we start. We start there before we even look at numbers, is learning how to take your power back,
Mhm.
right? And giving yourself that permission to do it is so important. So just the one thing that you can do right now is just make a decision,
Mhm.
right? Just draw that line in the sand that you're going to take the reins and take control of your money, because you want to take your power back. And you can do it today. So easy. It is so easy to just get started today and just write yourself a permission slip, right? We're all moms, right? We write permission slips all the time. Write one for yourself this time, right?
Mhm.
And
Love that.
always remember that you are your own best investment.
I love that. Is there a book that was instrumental in your journey?
I have many. I have many, but one of the books that stands out, because I went through a lot of trauma as a child. And so I have that. I think you're going to ask me. So
Ah,
this one's called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. This is a
that
great
that
book.
grunt that you guys all heard was because she showed the book before she said the book, and I recognized it, and I loved it.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
It's a really great book. It's a great starter book. If you're just getting started on your personal journey, and it's also a great book if you're in the middle of it, or if you need to um, get back to it, if you've gotten lost,
You might
because
be
that
able
can
to
happen.
answer this
Yeah.
question, because I don't think I finished the book, because I used to call that the magic book. Well, I still call it
Yeah.
the magic book, because my coach, I would say, like, I have a pain in my left shoulder, and she would look
Mhm.
it up and she'd tell me
Yep.
the affirmation, and I would say it, and the shoulder pain would go away, and I was like, can you tell me what the magic book says about this? Can you tell me what the magic book says about that? And I did it enough where I was like, can you just tell me what the magic book's called, so that I can get it for myself, so I can stop bugging you. So I bought the book, and I used it like a dictionary of
Mhm.
ailments. I never read it for the longest time. I started reading it in the beginning of 2022. And I you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a passage in there that talks about where you integrate your mom and your dad's, like, and you bring them into your heart. That's
Yeah.
the right book? Okay, so that
Yeah.
was the last chapter that I read. I still haven't finished the book. That was the last chapter I read, and I did that right before my dad passed away.
Wow.
And I believe that's one of the reasons that I feel as connected to him as I do, is because of that exercise. And it was very healing because like I love my dad so much, and I didn't always feel like he loved me back. And so when I've actually said to people that I feel more connected to him now in the non-physical than I did when he had his stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that, and I'm okay with that too.
You don't have to. It's yours.
Yeah. So, but thank you for representing that book. And I'm pretty sure I have a cabinet of books that I've started that I'm haven't finished that I want to finish, and I'm pretty sure that book is in my cabinet.
Yeah, go find it today. Go leaf through it. It's a great book. I think it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't finished it, obviously, because it affected you.
Yeah. And looked into the human design, and that's one of my traits from the human design, is that I read to a point and I get what I need and then I move on. Like
You're a manifesting generator.
I am.
Yep, I am too. I'm certified in human design. I do
Are you
reading.
really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So where can our listeners find you?
The best place is my website, momswhomoney.com. You can find me everywhere from my website.
And is that the name of you have a podcast, correct?
Yes. It's also called Moms Who Money.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation about money, which
Me
is
too.
progress.
Yes.
And hopefully, and I felt some, heaviness in my chest. So, there's still some work to be done. But you bring such good energy about it that I'm like, anytime I feel down about money, I feel like I'll just re-listen to this episode so I could remember, like, oh yeah, money is my friend. And so when I personified money, I imagined Tinkerbell, just kind of boop, you've got money. And I think that needs to change because it makes money more magical and not consistent. And I need money to be consistent. And so I'll figure out who that person is in my life and imagine money to be that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I would love to give your listeners a free gift.
Absolutely.
So I have this guide. It's called 6 Steps to Money Smart Kids. And the feedback that I've gotten from this guide is phenomenal. It's a great place to get started, no matter how old your kids are. And the easiest place to find it is momswhomoney.com/kids.
Yeah, I love that. And I will make sure that goes in the show notes as well.
Great.
So thank you again for being here and for what you're doing in the world, because we can't heal things that we're not willing to look at. And yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today. This was a great conversation.
So
And I feel your heart. I feel what you're feeling right now. And I just want to say that the feelings that we feel about money, the embarrassment, anxiety, and the shame, and all these feelings, we feel them so deeply, and we feel like you're alone. And we all feel them, right? And you feel it so deeply and so hard and so heavy. But remember, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're not alone.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
There will be another episode of Imperfect Mommy for you all coming next week. And until we meet again, keep healing. Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit alicialyons.com. That's ALYSIA lyons.com. See you next time.